Eva Cardegwale, as far as Sportsline on Scariff Bay Queen's Radio. Good afternoon, everyone. You're welcome once again to Sportsline here on Scariff Bay Queen's Radio in association with their credit union. And on today's show, obviously it's all camogie and hurling. Of course, the weekend is in it, the All Ireland semi-finals. We have a quick look back to the Clare's camogie campaign, which ended unfortunately last weekend. And we wish their juniors the very best of luck in the All Ireland quarter-final later on today. I'm joined, as always, here by Pat McNamara. And Pat, you're welcome. And first of all, Pat, All Ireland semi-final weekend, Pat, and believe you me, you'd hardly know it was on.
Yeah, things are kind of quiet. I suppose all the secrecy from the camps, and I think it's not just Clare camp. I think off the air they were here in the Kilkenny camp, and all the other county camps are now keeping everything very secret. Players can't speak to their press. They can't speak to their families hardly, with orders being that everything is kept in house. But as well as that, the glamour games now are from, you could say, late April till mid-July. It's over. So there's practically 8 months with no glamour ties in hurling. A few league matches early in the year. I know the club championship is fantastic, but that's at a local level. So when you see the publicity soccer and rugby get through all the competitions, all the TV, all the interviews, all the stuff online, and hurling is keeping mum. Nobody can talk. Nobody can talk about the game or injuries or what's going on, who's going on in training. I think we're missing a big chance to promote the game, and I think there should be open nights. There should be kids brought in to meet the players, and there should be so much stuff going on with photographs and selfies and all that. But at the moment, you can only do it after games if you're later on the pitch. And I think we're missing a big chance to promote what is the best game going.
I think, Pat, it's a discussion we're going to have again at a future date, because it's a subject that has to be looked at. And now we turn first of all to camogie, and now we're delighted to be joined on the line by men well versed in all GAA matters. Former All Ireland club medal winner with his club St. Joseph, extensive coaching knowledge all over the country. Men very good as part of our commentary team here on Scariff Bay Queen's Radio. It's Patsy Fahy. Patsy, you're welcome once again.
Thanks very much, Liam. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Patsy, I suppose, look at first of all a major weekend ahead with the All Ireland semi-finals. Of course, there's also the small matter of an All Ireland junior camogie quarter-final. But first of all, Patsy, we have to look back to last weekend, and unfortunately another year gone by for the Clare senior camogie team, and exiting the championship at the group stages.
Yeah, very disappointing, Liam. I mean, I was there at that match last week now, and it was a very, very poor performance. I mean, to get trimmed like that by Cork in your own backyard, and we would always pride ourselves in Clare, no matter if it's men or ladies, that your home patch is the patch to really battle hard and go at it. And I think most of us expected, Leo, going into the game that while we were underdogs. I mean, Cork are in the top four, the top two champions, over the last few years. I expected maybe with 10 minutes to go that the game would be tight. I was totally wrong. I was bamboozled really by Clare's tactics, that the amount of space that was afforded to Cork, especially in the full forward line. I mean, poor Susan Daly there was full back. I mean, she got no cover. I mean, Brian Nolan did something similar maybe in the men's in the Munster final. That Cian Nolan got no cover either. This is very much similar. And people should be learning now at this stage that when Cork have two lively forwards kind of on the D, and space is at either side of them, they're going to pop it into space. And unfortunately, Cork had the pace, they had the physicality, and then, like alarm bells should have rang 30 seconds of that game when John Murphy had to produce a save, Leo. So things were wrong from the start. I don't think we set up right. I mean, whatever tactically Cork wanted to do, they done it to us, and we were with a gale, and we down 266 points at half time. And it just went from bad to the second half. So look at a very fascinating experience. The one thing I'll say about Clare Camogie, it was a tough group. You know what I mean? They got Cork and Galway, which is two of the elite teams in the Camogie. That happens. I mean, but Clare seems to be getting the tough draws all the time. But again, they got the win against Down, up and down, a hard fought win. But I mean, is we're talking about getting to the next level now for a good few years now, Clare Camogie in the seniors, and we're just not getting there. And I'm not sure is the progression at the moment that I saw over the year that I looked at Clare Camogie this year.
And Patsy, as you mentioned there earlier, they got the win over Down, up and down, which was a great one, and the pressure was off. They had 2 free hits. Now they took Galway to 3 points. Now maybe it was comfortable for Galway in the end, but you just wonder how you can go from a performance against Galway where you're in contention relatively to such a poor performance last Saturday against Cork.
Yeah, it was a very surprising performance. I mean, but I like, okay, we can pinpoint the poor injury team or Kelly to start. But again, that was probably the forward play that we lost a very good forward. But we weren't getting the ball up there anyway. We were living off scraps. I mean, Clare have living off place balls all year long. And let's call a spade a spade. We're not getting the free flowing scores from play like other teams are doing in the country. So we're living off Lorna McNamara's frees a lot, and it's not going to carry you into getting the big W's in the crunch time in senior championship. Like, we got two massive trimmings this year, lads, with Munster final defeat down against Tipperary, and there's the prime template there of what Tipperary, very disappointing Tipperary last year, and all of a sudden they circled the wagons down below there, and they're a serious force to be reckoned with this year, and really took Clare to the cleaners down below in the Munster final. So two big performances that Clare were looking for, a Munster final and a last round championship do or die game against Cork, and we failed miserably. It's a very tough pill to swallow. I don't know where we go from here, lads. There's a start again that we need to maybe gather the academies and all that kind of stuff and go from the underage, do something like the lads were doing, and go from there, because we might lose a generation here if we're not careful on the Clare Camogie, and that would be very disappointing. Clare are they're trying to push forward with Father McNamara Park, and the facilities are great and great sponsors and all that kind of stuff, but we're just not putting the product on the field at the moment, Leo, which is very, very disappointing.
And Patsy, you're talking about going back to your underage, and we've set this, put this point in motion here on Sportsline, Scariff News Radio. Clare are now playing a minor A Shield competition. They're playing under 16 Shield competition, relatively Division 2 competitions. For going forward, really, it's when the Clare had success at minor level a couple of years ago. Now, they didn't bring in All Ireland, but they brought 2 or 3 Munster championships, which was and got to 2 All Ireland finals, which was great progress. And however, now they're playing down lower divisions, and it's very hard to see. I know some personnel have wanted to get involved in the Camogie at underage and haven't been allowed in, I don't know, for whatever reason or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's a long way back, Patsy.
It is, and it's going to have to be, what do they call a wrench, and sit down and say, where are we actually going? I know the juniors are playing today, and really they are probably on the favourites for the competition, if not the favourites. So Clare will hopefully get over the line finally. I mean, they're at it a long time now trying to win this junior talent. But again, it's another level up if you do win it now. And it's another level that can Clare compete at that next level, at the intermediate level, we'll say, or are they going to get a few beatings and maybe not be, how would I say, competitive. And that's the key word. You have to be competitive in matches. And unfortunately, when push comes to shove a lot of the time in the senior level, like, we look a little bit kind of light. We look not as strong as other teams. And other teams are down the line a bit more. The Galways, the Corks, the Kilkennys. But I mean, we just have to put something in place now that in a few years' time that we have the people to match the strength of an Evo D. You know what I mean? Match the strength of a Clare Herr, the Ciara Gorgans, but also build in more fitness and more skill set. The skill set is still, we need to be stick passing at 25, 30 yards to hand, give and go, stuff like that. It's breaking down a lot for Clare, and that's what's costing us scores as well. So it's just, we're obviously missing forwards. We're missing forwards for a long time in Clare. We're just going to have to go outside the box and scour the county in any level, really. I know senior level is probably one to think, but there's always 1 or 2 in every club. I know myself, I'm involved in Camogie. There's always 1 or 2 you'd say, well, she could be moulded into a Clare. Someone has to be moulded somewhere. I mean, go back to the 90s and my day, you always find somewhere to say, that man could be a player. Look, they did it himself with Conor Clancy and the Liam Dials of this world and all that. They moulded players to fit a generation and fitted them into a team and got the balance right. The balance is crucial in any team. I know it's difficult when you're involved in club level, but at county level, you should be getting the elite, and I think a few of the elite players and Clare are playing for the county for some reason or the other. So that has to change as well if Clare want to be successful at the top.
Well, Patsy, I think it's quite clear, why certain players aren't involved with the county, and they've made their feelings quite known, but it just, these feelings just don't seem to be taken on board, and I think they've said it more than once. But even going back to your talk about having a root and branch, there's been a good few managements now where they've said they'd go back and they have to get straight and conditioning. We still don't seem to be any further down the line than we were 7 or 8 years ago.
No, it doesn't. And that's really what, when I was coming out of Cusack Park, that's what really scratched my head last week. And I kind of said that. I said, are we any farther down the road 3 or 4 years later? You know, it's very disappointing. It must be very disheartening for the players as well. They have put in massive effort. You know, massive training nights, massive gym work, massive everything to get up to a level, and they're still coming up short. But I mean, short going down fighting is another thing. You can probably take in a small few positives out of it and drive it on into next year. But getting trimmed like that, you know, in a couple of big matches this year, Munster final and that do or die knockout against Cork, that leaves a very sour taste in the mouth. And all it takes is a couple of the big guns for Clare, and we all know who the big guns are in Clare, to maybe decide, you know, I might go travelling next year, or maybe work commitments could come in your way, and all of a sudden you're losing some key senior players then. And I'm wondering, is there enough, you know, bodies coming, leaders, you know, real experience coming up to take over from that mantle? Other than that, you know, we could be struggling against, you know, the middle order again. You know, we were trying to break into the top 6, let's say, and that's farther down the field than we ever were now at the moment.
Patsy, you're as familiar with the club scene in Clare Camogie as anyone, and we are as well recently, obviously through covering matches here for Scariff Bay, and I know you've obviously had an interest and indeed a deep involvement at times as you have now, but the club scene in Clare is reasonably competitive. I think at senior level and intermediate, we don't see that many junior games. I mean, I think it's a decent standard. I think there's a decent level of competitiveness, intensity. We've had great matches there in the finals and semi-finals in recent years. Scariff, Galway and Kilkenny, through Clare, Newmarket, all those teams involved. So if the players seem to be there and they seem to be strong and physical and intense at club level, what needs then to be done is a coordinated, that's not been drawn together properly, you know, by all the powers involved in running the county teams. That the potential should be there, but there needs to be a kind of a way of getting it all together and pulling in the best players and getting the most out of these good players that we have in terms of club, because the club scene is strong and they've proven that in Munster.
Yeah, look, Pat, I come across it in clubs. You know, I'm involved in clubs. You know what I mean? But I, as a trainer or a manager, right, and if I'm involved in the club team, I want them girls 3 times a week. It has to be done 3 times a week to improve any club player, right? 3 times a week. Like, when you get the club player improved, that girl can progress to the next level, whether it will be a county minor or a county junior or a county senior. Someone could be spotted in championship then after that. But unfortunately, there's so much things going on for girls in this county. Yeah. Football is a key area as well. Anyone that's involved in dual, it's really, really tough in a camogie scene to get 3 nights a week. You can only do the 2, and can you do the 2 properly because the football match on the following night. Like, look what the Clare have to put up with now. We have to put up a senior championship on a Friday night, right? And then in the next couple of rounds, would say you have nothing on a Sunday, but you have a couple of football games on Sunday then. That's 24 hours of recovery for a girl to go out and play a senior championship football match as well. In the middle of all that, you've got minor championship on a Wednesday night, minor championship Wednesday, senior championship on Sunday, and some girls are playing club football championship then on a Sunday. Like, that is absolutely crazy. And in one case, we have a situation where we're playing senior championship on Saturday and there's club football on Sunday. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, that is just absolutely ridiculous. We need to really roll the hatches. And this is going on now, the LGFA, and sure, they can't get it right in the inter-county scene, let alone the club scene. You know, so this is crazy stuff. Girls are facing burnout, and managers and coaches like myself and like cannot get the best out of your players if you have to mind them. All you're doing is just coaxing them along and just kind of nearly gathering recovery sessions in during the week, and that affects the real championship calibre that we want to watch
and
come
Patsy,
Friday night.
On that point, if I may come in there while it's in my head, is Clare suffering more from this aspect of things than others? I associate the Galway Camogie area with kind of being away from the football area, and that there mightn't be a massive amount of dual players down South Galway, East Galway, where the Camogie is strong. Also, Cork have the opposite the numbers. I know there's some outstanding dual players in the history of Cork who can mention this minute, but they have enough numbers in both to be absolutely very, very strong. Tip, I know have a few dual players as well, but is Clare suffering more than the other strongish counties in terms of the dual player?
Well, I think from the club point of it, definitely, Pat. I think so.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I can
scene,
see it myself for involved. I've been involved in a couple of clubs where there's dual involved. Like, I'd love to have a club that's just camogie only. You know, it really, you can really improve players when they're with you dedicated for 3 nights a week. And in fairness to the girls, sometimes they're just, you know, you can't get them out 3 nights a week. Yeah. You can only go to twice a week, and there's a bit of a gap between the sessions then because they have football in between that. It's very, very difficult for girls, you know what I mean? And especially with the younger generation. And unfortunately, more senior clubs, they're relying on their minors to maybe make up the extra 4 or 5 spots on the team, Pat. You know what I mean? And Leo, you know, yeah. So everyone's relying on the up and coming girls to make a spot. But it's very, 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 very difficult at the moment. I mean, it's not easy, but something has to be worked out soon, or Clare Camogie will suffer even more down the line.
And Patsy, you know, we're looking at the team, the players and the Clare senior team, and there's no doubt they go out to give their best. But I'm just looking at some of the club teams here out this way, and I look at Ian Kilmona, they were successful. Unfortunately, they didn't bring a Munster club. Scariff brought 2 Munster clubs. But there's maybe some ladies playing for Clare at the moment and independent wouldn't make those club teams at those times. Do you know what I mean? And, you know, that's the calibre of player that was playing. I know they're not all committed to the county. We also had a fella that went, maybe looked for the Clare job last year, was willing to take it on. He didn't even get an interview until the Clare position was nearly filled, you know, until they knew he was getting another job. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, and I have nothing against the Clare manager at the moment. He's very, very best with what he had. You know what I mean? That's, you can only play with what you have in front of you. But there seems to be a total... everything isn't pulling into one direction, and I think that's quite obvious to everyone in the county. But the powers that be just don't want to look at this.
Yeah, I kind of said at the start of the year, you remember, you asked me about the camogie going forward and for the year ahead, and I kind of said that John, I soldier with John for a few years, like, and I just thought John would have. I said it at the time, cleared house, maybe got a few fresh voices in, because I know myself. You're there in the club team for 2 or 3 years. People kind of get sick of hearing you, and you kind of know when you have to move on, and that's the beauty of a man or a woman knowing when to move on. You know, when the voices are getting a bit old, and players need fresh voices. It's like a new coach coming in, you know, and that's what I was always saying about Clare. Maybe Clare need to go outside and give a couple of euros to a winner, a born winner that has been around the Galway scene, the Cork scene, the Tipperary scene. I see Liam Cronin training the Cork team last week, you know what I mean? He's going to be involved in a role this year for the senior men, you know, so guys like that are hard to come by, I know, but I'm just saying that maybe Clare need to find a top class coach to get it up and running, but also tactically on the line as well, lads. I'm not sure who makes the calls in line, but tactically we were very naive last Sunday as well, and maybe if that was quicker, we could have held in the game a bit more. But I'm just saying, fresh voices are absolutely vital, and especially in inter-county. It doesn't matter if it's a doctor, physio, or anyone like that. People like to hear fresh voices, fresh encouragement, and you know, and if someone has to raise the voice a small bit, that's no harm in a fresh voice, because they're only in it for the right reasons. That's the main
Patsy,
thing.
Just to say, Patsy, you're talking about bringing in outside men. It just looks to me from the looking in that I don't think an outside man is welcome. That maybe that the power might be shifted from the power base of the committees or whatever. Maybe I'm wrong now, but you know that there's a lot of thinking has to be done, not only on the players or the management, but at board level as well. I think it has to come across the board.
It does. It has to. They have to. You know, after the season's over, I think people have to really sit down and put their heads together. And yes, that comes from everybody, and that has to come as well. Clubs have to demand that as well, Leo and Pat. I mean, that, you know, the Scariff and Gunlows, Yanni Kilnamonas, that the people in the top table and clubs are asking questions. Where are we actually going? And as soon as the questions are asked, maybe the questions have been asked at the moment, that, you know, people got a kind of free rein this year to push on and run the camogie bit, and it just stall and maybe even backwards a bit. Look, I suppose we'll have to wait and see what happens out of it. But it's a big winter ahead for Clare Camogie, and where to go.
And Patsy, finally, you know, before we go away from the camogie, there's the big game, the All Ireland quarter final today, and realistically, in this competition, the games are only maybe starting. Maybe at semi-final stage, you'd find the Group M's were a non-event, and you know, you learn nothing from it. Clare have won the league. They beat Antrim, a team that turned them over in the All Ireland semi-final last year. They're probably the only 2 competitive games that really got this year. You know, they need to be getting out of that division sooner rather than later, because realistically the teams that are left in it are a non-entity really. And, you know, to improve not only themselves but the team above it, they need to be getting out of it sooner rather than later.
Oh, absolutely, and that's what the management want, obviously. I mean, the management want, to get him out of that junior level, obviously, get their day in Croke Park, lift the trophy, bring it home, and then move on to the next level. Because at the moment, like, they are a cut above, and look at, as I say, a lot of the teams that they've turned them over the last few years, the Antrim is, they're steadily progressing there as well, so they're playing a quarter final in the championship there, today as well, so they're playing Tipperary,
That's
so
right.
there's teams out there progressing away, even downward progression. There's only a couple of teams that have kind of regressed. I think Offaly probably have regressed a bit, and probably Limerick are kind of flatlining a small bit as well. So Clare got to make sure that they're not flatlining. I'm just saying at the senior level at the moment, but I'm just saying to get out of that junior level and to push it forward, which is crucial. Which we expect them to get over the line today. And then, like I said, maybe the championship starts getting a bit more competitive after that.
Yeah, indeed, and that's we wish them the very best to look up there in Clane today in their quarter final again, Kevin. Patsy. And quick as we the clock is moving on us, there's a small matter of 2 All Ireland semi-finals this weekend. Your thoughts on Limerick and Galway first of all, later on this evening in Croke Park, prior to the big or the one that we really have an interest in Clare and Kilkenny tomorrow. Your thoughts on Limerick and Galway this evening, Patsy?
Yeah, Josh, really looking forward to this. And this is a cracker. I suppose looking back at the Tipperary Galway game, I would have fancied Galway, and that's to be honest with you. I thought Tipperary were a small bit overrated, and I think Galway were coming in after a very heartbreaking defeat in Leinster final, and I'm sure they wanted to try and obviously stay alive in the championship. I mean, it was a big game for Henry Shefflin as well. I mean, if Henry had got turned over by Tipperary, I suppose the old heads in Galway, which roll very easy up there at times, they'd probably be rolling a bit more. So look, I think Henry has a big one on his hands today, but I think the position of Cathal Mannion as sweeper the last day against Tipperary was really a master stroke, and I thought he really dictated the game and kind of put Galway in great positions when he got the ball. He wasted very little, and I think if they do that again today, that might stop the supply into Aaron Gillan and Seamus Flanagan, because all he was doing was looking over his shoulder the last day in the Tipperary game to make sure the likes of Kehoe and Jake Morris didn't get ball, and in fairness he did it well. But also you have to give credit to the Galway forwards who put pressure on the Tipperary backs. They give no outlet for the easy ball, and I think Galway are in for a big game today. I'm leaning towards Galway for the last since I saw them against Tipperary, and I'll stick with that for the upset today. I think missing Sean Finn and obviously Declan Hannon for Limerick, it's going to be a big blow for them. Had missing 2 top class backs like that, and it's not been sour grapes against Limerick or anything like that. I just think Galway's time is now. But obviously, and yourselves lads and all the people listening, Galway are going to have to close out the game. If they're leading by a few points, I mean, they can't do it again what they did against Tipperary. That game should have been over and out, and with a couple of minutes to go, there was only a point in it, and Galway had to go up the field and get a couple of great scores from Tom Monaghan to really seal it. So Galway have a little bit of head of steam here. I'm sure they're going in with a real confidence about them, and I think people would have looked at the game last year as well and thinking Galway should have pushed over the line, but just got caught, I suppose, late on. If Galway can get rid of that, the so-called yips at the end of the game, and maybe drive on with a few scores from the likes of a Tom Monaghan or someone else coming off the bench, I mean, I think Galway have a serious chance today, and I think Galway could be on the road up for the All Ireland on the 23rd of July.
And we might inclined to agree with you a bit. I just think, Patsy, a lot of people are talking about that Limerick will have a plan to curb the influence of Conor Whelan or Curtis reply to him maybe, and I'd say that might be true. But the other thing I noticed the last day was the likes of Cian and Fahy and Kevin Cooney and those lads mightn't be the classiest throwers in the world, but they're big strong men, able to win ball and able to engage back. So Limerick will have enough to do to watch those lads like Concannon as well. So maybe to be a day that the other lads might stand up and Limerickers can't concentrate on Whelan alone.
Oh, you give 3 names there. I mean, and don't forget Evan Nyland. Like, he's missing nothing from frees either.
Yeah.
So this is crucial. Concannon was a little bit quiet against Tipperary now. He's a little bit quiet. He's still a fine player. Definitely. Fahy centre forward was outstanding. Actually, to be honest, he was very, very busy all the way through. And young Cooney there on the corner, he was a real live wire. Cause I think it was Mikey Breen there. Untold problems there in the first half, and that's a perfect outlet because Conor Whelan would need someone to kind of take the little bit of heat off him on the inside line. But don't forget, Whelan can go to the outside line as well, like he did in the Leinster final, and cause rack out in the half hour then as well. So Conor is finding form. He's got 2 man of the match performances. I mean, I think Galway are in great shape here. They have the strength, they have the physicality down the middle as well. So Limerick will need it all. Limerick are probably a little bit fresher, I suppose, coming off an extra break. But it should be the making of a cracker. This will go down to the wire again. That it should. you.
And Patsy, the big game of the weekend is definitely the Clare, or from our point of view, is the Clare Kilkenny game. And how do you see this one panning out, Patsy? Are Clare going to make it to the All Ireland final for 2023?
Well, sure. Look, we all hope and pray. We do. I mean, look at when we look back to 12 months ago. I mean, we were nearly starting the engines at half time. It was so bad, So look, we don't expect anything of the sort like that this year, guys. We expect a real close championship, hard fought encounter. We're expecting Clare to have a performance in Croke Park, which they normally do up until last year. So look, Clare getting to Croke Park, they always love it. We're in good form in the forwards, especially. Shane O'Donnell's, the Tony Kelly's, Dave Fitzgerald seems to got back a bit of form as well. So we're looking at a real attacking, scoring game, in my view. So hopefully, we can get the scores up top. But I'd be a small bit worried that the inside line could be a little bit vulnerable to maybe some heavy hitters from Kilkenny coming in. Adrian Mullen probably back. Owen Cody in great form in the Leinster final. Big Walter putting in a performance. Rolling back the years as well. Don't forget Richie Hogan on the bench as well. I mean, Richie's in back there just to warm a bench. He's there for a bit of experience to come in and cause a few problems on maybe an Adam Hogan or maybe a Rory Hayes or something like that. So look, we don't know the issue with Conor Cleary. It's been very quiet at the moment. Wouldn't it be great news if the stadium announcer announced Conor Cleary starting, and instead of last year having the pin bust with John Conlon not starting, that would have a small bit of positivity going into the game as Clare fans. So we're all hopeful and praying. We're going to need to tighten up, lads. We're going to need to be very economical with the ball as well. We're going to need our half back line, Jim Ryan and Dave McInerney, hopefully to start pinging in a bit of low ball as well. We won't get away with shepherding in high ball like we did last year into Peter. That's only food and drink to the likes of Hugh Lawler and Tommy Walsh and these guys. David Blanchfield. They're all well able to ping a high ball, catch it, and we don't need that. We need low ball, get into the channels and let Mark Rogers scale, let David Fitzgerald, he's well able, Tony Kelly, Shane O'Donnell, take it on and let's see can we get some scores on the board. And
Patsy, at the end of the day, are we going to be in the All Ireland final, Patsy?
I'll go with it. I think we can get out on a high scoring shootout. I just hope, Leo, that we can get off to a good start. We don't need to do what we did last year. I know 11-2 was very unusual for Clare, but even going into a 6 or 7-2 hole or something like that, we need to get off to a good start. Get the Clare crowd in it. We're going to be outnumbered Kilkenny 3 or 4-1. Let's get the Clare crowd into it with a couple of scores early, and hopefully, the crowd can carry us over the line. And to look at if it's a Clare Galway or Clare Limerick All Ireland final, so we won't care. Look, we'll rely on Scariff Bay to get us a couple of tickets for that.
Well, man, Patsy, I know you'll have the final shot. As always, Patsy, good to hear your views here on Scariff Bay Community Radio. Thanks for taking the time to talk to us. And look, we will talk to you again as we've got a preview of the All Ireland final in 2 weeks' time. Thanks a million, Patsy.
Thank you very much.
Patsy.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, God bless. Okay.
And once again, thanks for Patsy Fahy taking the time to talk to us. And now we move to up the road, and we're going to get the view from the tribesmen and men. We're going to talk to men well versed in all about hurling and Galway and all over, men who's represented the county at all grades and is involved in coaching up there. It's Andy Coen. Andy, you're welcome once again, Scariff Bay Community Radio.
Good evening, lads. Thanks very much for the invite onto the programme.
Andy, I know time is a constraint for you now as you're getting ready to hit for Croke Park for the semi-final. You're taking on the reigning All Ireland champions, Andy, and what's your thoughts going into this evening's game?
Yeah, look, I suppose kind of in the Galway side of things, like we're kind of heading to Croke Park this evening now, and we're kind of saying if we knew what Galway was about to show up, we kind of have a better idea about what's going to happen later on. You know what I mean?
That's an issue going on for a few years now, Andy. In fairness, which Galway will show up. I mean, it's going on for probably 20 years plus, and it's still kind of an issue in Galway, isn't it?
It is, because if you're judging their form from the entire year, and I suppose if you focus on the championship in the past 5-6 weeks, if you're going on the Leinster final performance, you definitely. You know what's coming there. If you're going on part of the Tipperary performance, you can see what could be coming there. But it's really been quite an up and down year for them overall. So that's kind of where the kind of apprehension is a bit heading up this evening, is that we don't know which Galway is going to turn out.
I suppose you have a fair idea what Limerick will turn up. I suppose they've been turning up pretty similarly for the last 4 or 5 years, and obviously short a couple of major players, particularly defenders. So that must possibly increase your chances of performing a bit better maybe up front?
It is, like, yeah, you kind of have to, I suppose you do have to look at the positives and say, like, that if we can even get any bit of a performance at all, even another 10% above what we played with Tipperary, and then, like you said, with Limerick adding in the fact that they're missing some really influential players, I definitely think whatever goes, even the star names up front, my own opinion would be that Sean Finn, I think, is probably the biggest loss for Limerick, because he knitted so much there in that defence. He really took on the key men, the danger men in the inside lines, because the likes of Jake Morris and that. Because you see what he did to him in the league final earlier on this year. Not the league final. That was Kilkenny. They played Tipperary earlier on this year, and Sean Finn really nailed down Jake Morris.
Yeah, semi-final.
So
yeah.
Him missing from that Limerick full back line is to me probably the bigger key loss compared to the likes of Keane Lynch or even Declan Hannon.
Yeah, and I suppose maybe I'm looking at Declan Hannon myself, Andy, this year, and I thought he'd maybe playing better hurling than he'd ever played. Unfortunately for Limerick, he's not able to last the 70 minutes, and I thought maybe that in the half backline, when he has gone off injured in both games, they get very, very disorganised. He's a great organiser. Maybe that's his strength, Andy.
He is definitely. You're right. He probably is his strength, because he's not overly dominant like as a six. You say, even going back to Shawnee McMahon, where he's underneath every dropping ball, or he's planting his feet and from 100 yards. He's not really that dominant, but he pops up every now and again, supporting the midfielders, taps it over the bar from 60 yards. Do you know what I mean? But like you said, he reads and he organises everything. He's half forward and back there sweeping up and covering. So someone needs to direct that. And I suppose being a good captain that Hannon is, like, he's probably been doing that without too much broadcasting really over the years.
Yeah, and Andy, I suppose this evening really is all about Galway, really. And as you said, if you knew what Galway was going to turn up, it would be great. They're due a big one, Andy. And Henry Shefflin rang the changes the last day. He's kind of gone back now he made 3 or 4 changes, and this time maybe the bench looks stronger. Lads coming off, he proved his point against Tipperary the last day. And I think, in fairness, the bench has scored, and I'm not sure what the total they've scored all year coming off the bench. Maybe some of the matches were over before they came on. But are people in Galway, do they sense that the best Galway team has gone out, Andy?
I suppose, in fairness to Sheffield and the management team, after the Leinster final, they made the changes because they really had to. Conor Cooney kind of just hasn't been fired and as good as and everyone says kind of here in Galway that he's club form compared to his inter-county form. He's just kind of found it hard for us to get going at different points this year. He was changed out for the Tipperary game. Tom Monaghan, who kind of struggled in that Leinster final as well, he was changed out, but then had a massive impact when he came in from the bench, like you said. And that's really a main kind of a key part of inter-county hurling, is that it's a 78-minute game nowadays, and you need to have that kind of influence with 55 minutes on the clock. So maybe, the few changes that he made, Keenan Fahy hurled very well in that Tipperary game. He was very unlucky for a goal chance at the very
Correct.
end. Obviously, Conor Whelan was fantastic in that Leinster final and in that game with Tipperary. And Evan Ireland, I suppose, is nailing everything from frees. But if you kind of go outside those kind of main players there, kind of then names, you could really get a little bit more from the likes of Brian Cannon, even Ronan Lennon, and like Kevin Cooney is dangerous. He hurled well for a lot of that Leinster final, but it's just to kind of get that more kind of consistency from the guys outside of the likes of Conor Whelan.
Yeah, and I suppose and even though Whelan, I suppose, has maybe shown a welcome return to form, maybe at the right time. And do you think maybe that Galway have timed their run perfectly this time, Andy? Okay, they looked. No, the one worry I would have is they looked out flat out on their feet, as it turned out in the game against Kilkenny in the Leinster final. They're going to have to go 75, 76 minutes later on this evening if they're going to get over the line.
That's it. Thinking back even to the football, going back to years there when Dublin and Mayo, and I know they played last weekend. I remember one year Mayo got level on 70 minutes on the clock, and there was still 8 minutes to go.
Yes.
And in that 8 minutes, Dublin blitzed them. And it's the same with this Limerick team. You get to the 70-minute mark, that's fine, but you still have another round to go, we'll say, if you wanted to compare it in boxing terms.
Yeah.
You have another round to go at that point, and that's where Limerick will last the pace, because that's like they pulled away with 3 points in the last couple of minutes last year when it
correct.
was really, really tight. David really got some great scores, where they were actually very composed in keeping the ball. And I think, like with that 10 extra minutes in the game. You just kind of hope that if Galway can get that bit of consistency from nearly everybody throughout the whole game, that they could be in with a shout.
And then everyone, I suppose, is talking about Gillane this year. I suppose what he did Clare alone, but for other counties as well. Do you think Galway have the right man for him, or do you think it's nearly more important that they protect the space in front of him as a team rather than maybe the individual marking him? How do you think Galway will handle Gillane?
Yeah, it's very hard to know. I mean, they kind of last year in that semi-final, they kind of had Cathal Mannion earmarked to mark that space, like you said, and cut out that supply ball. Yeah. But like Gillane, even in the Clare game, and I know hindsight is great about Nolan marking him and that, and with Shane Murray coming on, but like, you know, how do you actually go about it? Do you cut the supply out in the midfield area? Do you put the spare man in there? Do you put a spare man right in front of Gillane? It's very, very hard to know because, you know, Limerick have a time so well when to deliver that ball, and on the other hand then Gillane has a time so well to know when to run. He's not running when the ball might be hit. He's timing his run when it is hit. Like, so it's hard to know. I think Darren Marcy has hurled very, very well in the last couple of games as well. Jack Grealish has been steady. So I think they'd actually probably go with Morrissey, I'd say, or Jack, to kind of pick him up in the early stages, because it's hard to know. Gareth McInerney will be more kind of a physical, kind of stronger fullback. I don't know would he really have it to kind of stick with Gillane. So he'll
probably pick up Flanagan, maybe, will he, Andy?
I would say Flanagan, but like he's no slouch either. I think the best option would be really to kind of close down the likes of Darragh O'Donovan, close down Jimmy Burns, close down Kyle Hayes taking off in those runs, and try and cut the supply really more so than trying to cut a ball that's kind of going out over your head as a sweeper or a spare man.
And what's the feeling, including your own feeling, Andy, about the Daithí Burke, Garrod McInerney thing from before? You know, if you have the best fullback in the country potentially, which I think Burke was, you know, should he have been moved, or do you think it was a good call on behalf of Shefflin and his team?
It's hard to know. I mean, I think really what goes against Gareth McInerney is that, like, for determination and effort, you know, he really does give it his all. You know, but I think more it's his ball distribution, or his speed of thought, or how he's doing things in the field, and I think that's what kind of caught him in the Tipperary game. In the first half alone, I think he had maybe like 4 balls coming out of defence, that his kind of distribution was quite poor.
Yeah.
But then when you compare them to Daithí, like Daithí then is more tradition, like I spoke about Sean McMahon earlier on in the Leinster final. At times there, he's underneath ball. To me, he has the best hand in Galway club hurling, where he's able to catch high ball under pressure. You know, guys hanging off him. So it's really hard to know. Like, you know, you want that number 6 driving out and being dominant, and I think you get more of that from Daithí Burke. So to me, look, it's either or really. You know what I mean? I would agree with the switch. I think Daithí Burke is kind of more influential at 6, kind of driving forward and kind of being a platform to stop that ball coming through. I think he's excellent at that.
And Andy, as the time is caught up in us here, do you think that Galway can get, obviously again it goes back to the old adage, which Galway is going to turn up. Do you think Galway can really get over the line this evening?
I actually think they can. I think they can. I think the 2018 final and the 2 semi-finals in 2020 and 22, they just weren't a million miles away. And I think that, you know, if they have that little bit of grit in themselves and a small little bit of, you know, determination in them, and be aware that they need to go here for 80 minutes this evening, that, you know, they really just give it their all. They could, with the people that are missing for Limerick, I think they could get it over the line. I think they can. And
the bench going to be crucial also, once again, Andy.
Yeah, it's again, I'll keep referencing this 80-minute game, like, but you need that influence coming on. You need the injection on 50-55 minutes, and I think they might hold on to Tom Monaghan, I think, and kind of just have that injection coming, because he came onto a lot of ball there in that Tipperary game when they were really nearly of their own doing, keeping Tipperary in the game. But he did nail those chances at crucial times, and I think if the game opens up at that point in the second half, I think it could suit the likes of Tom Monaghan and Ronan Lennon could get onto that ball as well too. So definitely they need to kind of have that kind of influence coming in at that point in the game.
And Andy, finally, before we let you go, there's the small matter of the other semi-final tomorrow, Clare and Kilkenny. In 30 seconds, give you a synopsis and your view on who you think is going to get through.
I think with what Clare showed in that Munster final, I know they had kind of a nothing game against Dublin the last day. They still have to get through it. I think with what they showed in that Munster final and going on what their performance was last year in that semi-final with Kilkenny, I think they're going to come out with all guns blazing. I really give Clare the nod on that one, because that team has basically been there since 2018, really, when they went to that replay with Galway in the semi-final. And I think now is the time for them to really have that day in the sun. So I think it's going to be Clare. And plus, I want to get that revenge for the 1995 semi-final for Galway.
You've long memories down there.
As a child, as a young man now, that broke my heart. So I'm just having visions of Galway getting revenge in the final this year. So I really want Clare to make it as well.
I tell you, we'd look forward to Clare Galway All Ireland final, and
some crack around Gorton.
I tell you, there'd be some crack around South Galway and that and Kilnane and White and all those places.
Exactly, we'd have to make it. We'd have to make it a lot longer show anyway. Definitely.
Yeah.
We'd have to do it in Woodford. Come here, Andy. As always, good to talk to you, and thanks for taking the time to talk to us on Scariff Bay Queen's Radio. Safe journey, and we wish Galway all the best of luck later on this evening.
And the same to you guys, tomorrow. Thanks very much for having me on.
Good morning, Andy.
Good to have you again.
And once again, thanks to Andy Coen for taking the time to talk to us. And now we move on to our game of the weekend. And no better man to give the view from Northside and to give an honest appraisal of what to expect in Croke Park tomorrow. We're joined by our regular analyst from Northside, is Adrian Ronan. Adrian, you're welcome once again.
Boys, how are you doing?
How are you, Adrian? Good, no, thanks.
Adrian, it's a kind of a deja vu. We're back to the same four semi-finals last year. Although I think that has changed is the date. We are playing on tomorrow. And Mir, what are you expecting? We're hoping up here that it won't be much the same as what last year. We'd imagine to be a lot closer this time, Adrian.
Yeah, well, you'd imagine straight away that Clare have learned a lot from last year. You know, certainly Munster took an awful lot out of Clare last year. Tony Kelly being injured, John Conlon not being available. They were obviously huge bearings on the Clare performance last year. That's not the case. They're going in more measured, more calmer, and obviously hurling better than last year. It would seem. Still confused about our form and Leinster's form. If you look at the form of Leinster and Munster, look, Munster has been the high-profile games, the atmosphere, the crowds, the matches, it's all Munster, and Leinster, outside of the Leinster final in the second half, Kilkenny and Galway, has been relatively a bore. So it's very confusing the year so far. And then you see the annihilation that Clare gave Dublin, and Kilkenny struggled against Dublin only 6 weeks ago. So if you're trying to analyse a game based on form and trying to analyse it based on the last few weeks, the only measurement that I can see is Dublin and Kilkenny, Dublin and Clare. Clare annihilators Dublin, Kilkenny didn't and couldn't. So does that mean Clare are ahead of us? Not as easy as we all know, that's not the case. But Clare annihilators Dublin, Cleary, without McInerney, without McCarthy. And so that's a worry, I suppose, for Kilkenny, based on the form of the last 6 weeks. Kilkenny's form against Dublin was very ordinary. Clare against Dublin was excellent. But as we all know, it's not as easy as that analyse games. But based on that recent form, you'd say Clare have a lead on us at this stage. But as we all know, and I'm sure we'll mention it and talk about, injuries are massive both sets in both camps, and who's available and who's not is obviously going to be the big question come 10 to 3 or half 3 on tomorrow.
There's no doubt about that. But you're looking at form, Adrian, all year. And I know, look at the Munster Championship has been the higher profile, given the closeness of the games. And you said all the crowd atmosphere, the whole lot. Kilkenny have probably been the most consistent team along with Limerick this year. They got to the league final. Okay, Limerick turned them over in the league final. They've won the next competition up to the Leinster final. We're now into the All Ireland series. Kilkenny always seem to maybe get better as the year goes on. And of course, there was a time before when the Kilkenny would be getting ready for the first weekend in August when the semi-finals. Now, of course, tis the first weekend. It's a month earlier, first weekend in July. As you said, Adrian, injuries are going to be crucial. Both camps are keeping the cards very close to their chest. Clare are wondering whether Cleary or Conlon. Looks like Conlon is going to make it. There's a doubt over Conor Cleary, with that shoulder injury. Okay, much the same below Kilkenny with their injuries. I suppose, Adrian, it's only going to come to throw-in time when we're going to know exactly what's going to go on.
Yeah, even with the team's announcement, there'll still be doubts because there'll be a bit of game playing going on, not sure of it. So, look, the injuries, as we said, have a major bearing on how the outlook of the game is. It's probably be easier to make a fair assessment of both teams' chances if you knew by about 3:30, 10-4 tomorrow of actually who's playing. But as I said, we're only going on form. And while you mentioned about being consistently, Kenny, I think you've been very nice to us down here when you consider the opposition that we've had to play. A spade have been ordinary in comparison to the competition and the Munster competition. So, look, we're very confused in Kilkenny. We still don't know how good or bad we are. Like, we had an 8-point lead against Galway running away and nearly got caught, shall we say, and beat Galway. We weren't sure of Galway's form, and then Galway come along and give Tip a trimming and should have beaten by more. So you're trying to read into the fact, and we're trying to believe now, since the Tipperary-Galway match, that maybe Leinster hurling isn't as bad, that Galway were actually decent and are actually good, and maybe we're not too bad. So in the last, I suppose, immediately after the last weekend's or quarter-finals, the Kilkenny public started to believe that maybe we're not so bad after all. Look at what Galway did to Tipperary. So maybe, we have a chance. But so we're a little bit...
Sorry,
as I said, we're still confused, but we're more hopeful than we were after the Leinster final.
But another aspect has been taken into consideration, Adrian, is that despite the fact that Munster has the glamour ties and the big championship games and crowds, as we said, when it comes to an All Ireland semi-final in Croke Park, Kilkenny, regardless of who's managing them, regardless of who they're playing, they have a lot more experience of dealing with that kind of situation. Even if you leave out last year out of it completely, Clare are in this situation once in the blue moon. Kilkenny are there practically most years. And I mean, I think that overcomes a lot of the issues about a soft Leinster championship or in easy matches. The know-how that's there. I mean, Ling will have inherited players and the Cody way anyway. So, Kilkenny can handle that so well. And even last year, as we said, it was maybe a bit freakish in a way the game went. But you know how to handle these occasions, and that's a major factor regardless of form.
Yeah, you're right. Look, the journey to Croke Park is very familiar to Kilkenny public, supporters, players and management, you know what I mean? So look, you're an hour and a half, 2 hours up the road. We do it every year. We're fortunate then that Ballyhale do it often as well. There's 5, maybe 6 of the Ballyhale lads possibly start. There's 10 or 11 of them on the panel. So there's a familiarity with the process for sure. And look, whatever it is about Kilkenny and Kilkenny supporters, we seem to be very, we don't have that chant, we don't have that, as we often mention on radio, we don't have that tip crack that our neighbours have. And sometimes people get carried away with that chant. We're more measured, more calmer. And look, you look at even the last match, Tip and Clare, like the crowd that you brought, the supporters, the Clare people, the Clare public. I mean, we all know you love your music, but by that, the crowd, if it's the supporters alone at this stage, and supporters are going to win a championship, but Clare have demonstrated like their love of their hurling, their love of Clare hurling, and their ambition to win is second to none. And that can, as you said, can bring a certain element of pressure on players as well. So yeah, that probably is a factor. But yes, and we are more familiar. We are more familiar with the surrounds. We have a winning mentality. We have that kind of belief that a better team in Croke Park. We are more familiar with Croke Park. So yeah, that has to stand to us for sure. It has to stand to us.
And Adrian, looking at the Kilkenny team, and there has been injuries. Adrian Mullen was out, has been out. Richie Reid has been out. Do you see Martin Coen is also injured? Do you see many changes to the Kilkenny team from the team that started the last day in the Leinster final?
Yeah, again, it's been kept very tight and quiet, like it has been the last few years, because obviously there's no open training, social media, and the keyboard warriors, the gadgets and bluffers, they come out with all sorts of malarkey. But listening to the people that are close to them, getting a few little nuggets of information, it looks like Mullen has every chance. Richie Reid has every chance. Their expectations, Adrian Richie Reid will play and start. The doubt is Martin Coen. So of the 3 lads that we're more concerned with, Coen is the biggest threat, and Mullen and Reid should start. So again, in this modern game, again, regardless of the team that's picked and announced, there's still tweaks and changes. As we know, every team that Kilkenny match went out this year, there was possibly one, if not two changes. There was 3 or 4 below in Wexford of the team that was named and in the programme and announced on the Friday and the night or the Saturday night. So look, there's a game being played by both sets of groups and management. It's probably no different again for tomorrow. But I expect Adrian Mullen and Richie Reid to play. I don't expect Mossy Keown to play. But again, that's only the vibes and listening what we're hearing.
This time last year, Adrian, Clare went up with great confidence to the semi-final. We we were lucky to get over Wexford in the quarter-final, but everyone thought, look, we had our mojo back and we were going, and we were absolutely capitulated in Croke Park. Obviously, the loss to John Conlon was significant in that. This time, I think Adrian, Clare are more measured in their approach going up, and even though they lost the Munster final, there seems to be a bit more air of calm of Clare going up this time, and maybe we're expecting, and we need a much better performance.
Yeah, well, I suppose looking in from where we are, I don't think Clare got unduly worried about a Munster Championship. Yeah, it'd be lovely to win a Munster final, but at the end of the day, they were still in an All Ireland Championship, and that opportunity to win Munster is gone. So that graw and that passion to win the Munster, I'd say, wasn't as heavy weighted on the Clare lads. And as you rightly said, Brian Rowan is a very obviously clever man, brilliant hurler, of course. So he can't afford to have these guys caught up in like they did last year. Something went wrong last year, of course. Conlon's loss was massive. The replacements obviously didn't do well on the day. And look, the fact that Tony Kelly just had one of those off days, in fairness, Mikey Butler did brilliantly on him. Kelly scored 3-4 the last day. We'll all expect Mikey Butler to follow him, but surely, bit to God, Brian Rowan is not going to start them in a normal position. He's going to try and make it surely uncomfortable for Mikey Butler, and even possibly start Kelly in the middle of the field at some stage, put him on the edge of the square or whatever. But so there'll be a huge expectation of Mikey Butler. While he had a very good year in him last year, he has struggled a little this year, and as we know, in the league final again, Limerick struggled against Gillan for a while when he was on him. So look, it's a big ask for the young lad. He's only 20 years of age. He had an exceptional time, as I said. So the Kelly factor, the Conlon factor last year were massive losses to Ye. They're now back and in form, we think, and we'll expect. But that's a huge plus to Ye, I believe, and I think that'll be a huge plus to Clare, and has to be. And the fact, I think I always believe in this one myself, the hurt of losing, having that in your bag in a dressing room going out, I think that brings a huge steeliness to a group, and it should give a huge steeliness to a group to have something to aim for and play for. The fact that you were hurt so last year, and the performance wasn't just good enough, and this Clare group have been so together for so long, and Loan has been with him now for the past 4 years and been so close. I'm expecting huge things out of Clare, but as we keep going and saying back, injuries are massive to this group of Clare players. If Clare have everybody, if Clare have Cleary back, if they have McInerney back, Conlon back, and McCarthy back, well then I think a very strong position. I think we're in trouble. So, will they all be back? We have to believe some Ye lads down there. You're all telling me lies. None of them going to come back. But I expect at least 3, and I know the way you're laughing, I think all 4 will be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, I think.
Adrian, just a quick one there. I read something during the week about, efficiency in shooting, and I think Clare's percentage of efficiency over a number of games now is between 30 and 40%, which sounds atrocious, and it is. And that Kilkenny's is somewhere, and I'm not making this up, Kilkenny's is somewhere between 60 and 70, 60 to 72 or 3, depending on. But and that's, if we go to Croke Park and we're putting over 1/3 of our chances, we're not going to win. And it's an issue that needs to be addressed, I think, from a Clare point of view. It can be an issue for Galway as well, I think, off and on. But, in Kilkenny, how that efficiency of striking is amazing. And how was it arrived at?
I suppose it's decision making. I suppose, to be fair to the Kilkenny players, if there's one thing, if you look at some of their players now, this is not taking any criticism from the Clare perspective, but if I was looking in from the outside, the decision making of some of the Clare players during the Munster Champs this year, they tend to go for this long, spectacular shot. Work some days, you know what I mean? And Jim Ryan has done that some days, and Kelly's brilliant. But sometimes the decision making is often incorrect, I think, for Clare. When you have someone like Rodgers and O'Donnell inside and playing a two-man full forward line, I can't understand why 90% of you not going down into the corners, crossfield ball, 10 yards in front of them. Like, I mean, why would you have someone? Because let O'Donnell be as good as he is and Kelly be as good as he is, and they are. But Rodgers has the makings of a leading player and a marquee forward. He's bringing form, and I know you know a lot more than I do about him. But then I see him, I think there's more in him every day, and I don't think he's getting enough quality ball. So I think the decision making out of the Clare boys at some cases, and if you notice, I think the last day against Dublin in the first half, they were just aimless half chances, and then in the second half they started to play a few decent ball into the likes of Rodgers and them, and then you have the Duggan inside and Shanahan, so you can play it either way, what way. So one thing about the Kilkenny team, if you look at it, and I don't know whether it's good or bad, Donnelly doesn't go for his scores. Donnelly is a playmaker, a grafter, great risk. Billy Ryan is the same. For some reason, they lack confidence. And then it's left very quickly, then it narrows down your options. They're trying to get the ball to TJ, they're trying to get to Cody. Now, that's not always a good thing. And then we've struggled all year in the middle of the field. So we haven't a settled midfield. Like, you look at that midfield battle, you look at the permutations. And I think on tomorrow and Sunday, like, I think a lot will depend on our midfield. Our midfield has struggled all year. We've had 5, if not 6 different partnerships in most, if not all, our in championship matches. You've Malone and Fitzgerald all year. Fitzgerald getting better and stronger. Malone being very good the last day again. And I think, you know, when we start analysing all the different places and what, you know, I think the Clare forwards are very strong. I think they'll have a charge on us. I think both sets of forwards might, depending on who Clare have and don't have, I think both sets of forwards have the ability to beat their respective backs. But it's in the middle of the field for me that sometimes is bypassed. I think Clare have a huge advantage because we've been so unsettled. So that's why I think our midfield is massive on Sunday. And as I said, back to what you said about efficiency and decency, if we win that battle in the middle of the field, we tend to be fair to us, we try and get the ball into the right lads at the right time. We tend to pass it a little bit more and tend to play more as a team. It seems. That's what it seems now. So that's the only answer I have for that.
Yeah, and hopefully we'll get our passes and everything in here in right order in Croke Park tomorrow. And look, we wish both Clare and Kilkenny very best of luck. Adrian, the time has caught up on us. Before we let you go, the small matter of the game later on this evening in Croke Park, Henry Shefflin's Galway coming up against the reigning All Ireland champions Limerick. How do you see this one panning out, Adrian?
I know it's an afternoon gig here and I have no drink in me, I swear. But I think I give Galway, as it gets closer, I give Galway a great chance now. I don't know why I'm saying that. I was down in Limerick last weekend and I was circling listening to the Limerick lads. And to be fair, they're not buzzing like they are. They are a concern. They're not going as well as they'd like. Hannon is a massive loss. We're back to the injuries again. Finn is obviously a massive loss. Yes, they have great replacements, but they're still leading players. I go back to our own time when we played you in 1997. We lost our full back and our full forward. You can't afford to lose those big marquee players and still expect the same results, as much as you wish you have the panel. But Justin tells me I just give Galway a great chance. They really surprised me against Tipperary. And just maybe, they have a thing on Limerick, and Limerick are not humming. Now, it's hard to believe that. Everything will have to go well for Galway. Limerick will have to be off form. But that's possible. So maybe if I have a bit of loyalty to Henry, maybe that's what I'll give Galway a great chance. Great chance. I wouldn't a month ago, but I do now.
Would you believe it, Adrian? We've had 3 different individuals on analysing the games tomorrow, and all have gone for Galway.
Interesting, yeah, that's true.
So, any interesting
all have went for Galway.
All have gone for Galway, yeah. That's an interesting viewpoint, and Adrian, as always, good to hear your view here on Scariff Bay Community Radio. We hope that we'll be getting you back for the All Ireland final in 2 weeks' time when it's Clare versus whoever.
As a neutral.
Well, I hope it'll be Kilkenny. It'll be Kilkenny and somebody then.
Adrian, as always, good to take the time to talk to us here on Scariff Bay Community Radio, and we wish you all the very best luck for the weekend. Cormila Mahagot.
Thanks, and likewise, buddy. Thanks you.
Adrian.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a minute. And that concludes our Sportsline show here today on Scariff Bay Community Radio on 88.3 FM, 92.7 FM in association with Derek Credit Union. My thanks as always to co-presenter Pat McNamara. Thanks to our guests, Patsy Fahy, Andy Coen and Adrian Ronan, and we wish all the teams the very best luck, and we wish all you supporters travelling to Dublin for a weekend safe journey and hope you'll have an enjoyable weekend. Thanks also to Jim Collins in the control tower. Without him, we wouldn't have a programme. And thanks very much to you for tuning in and listening. We hope you enjoyed the programme. And all that remains is me, Leo Dial, until we meet again, Bannock Day, August Lawn.